Imagine a system that is meant to rehabilitate, yet often leads to a higher reoffending rates. We think of prison as a place where people serve their time, learn from their mistakes, and reintegrate into society. But in reality, is that what happens? Does Canada's prison system truly focus on rehabilitation, or is it just another punitive institution? Canada's prison system is often considered more progressive than that of the US. It claims to focus on rehabilitation, offering education, therapy, reintegration efforts. Unlike the US, where private prisons are common, Canada keeps incarceration under public control. However, despite these efforts, problems like overcrowding, mental health neglect, the over representation of Indigenous inmates raise serious concerns. So, today, let's take a closer look at the Canadian prison system. So, does it really rehabilitate or is it failing the people it's meant to help? Let's start with Canada's intended approach. The Correctional Service of Canada claims to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. This means prisons offer education programs, therapy, and reintegration plans so inmates can successfully return into society. One example is structured intervention units, which is a program that is designed to give extra support to inmates struggling with mental health issues or violent behaviors. In theory, these programs should reduce recidivism, but in reality, many inmates don't receive access to these programs. According to Public Safety Canada, over half of inmates aren't able to complete rehabilitation programs before their release, leaving them unprepared for life outside prison. This raises a key question. How effective really is the rehabilitation program if people aren't able to access the help they need? Another major problem is who ends up in Canadian prisons. And Indigenous people are disproportionately incarcerated at alarming rates. According to an article done by Paul Robinson in Statistics Canada, Indigenous individuals account for over 30% of federal inmates, while making up only 5% of Canada's total population. This issue is even worse for Indigenous women, who make up nearly half of all federally incarcerated women. The government introduced the Gladue principles to help reduce this injustice, allowing the judges to consider an Indigenous person's background before sentencing. But according to Justice Canada, the impact has been limited. Despite these measures, Indigenous incarceration rates continue really to rise. Another critical issue is overcrowding and mental health neglect. Right now, many Canadian prisons operate at over 100% capacity, meaning facilities hold more inmates than they were designed for. So, according to the John Howard Society, overcrowding creates violent environments, increases stress among prisoners, and limits access to rehabilitation programs. Mental health is another crisis. Studies from Service Canada show that over 70% of federal inmates struggle with mental health issues, yet only a small percentage of these inmates receive proper treatment. Without support, many inmates leave prisons in worse condition than when they entered. They're more likely to reoffend and they end up back in the system, reinforcing the cycle of incarceration. Some argue that privatizing prisons like in the US could reduce costs and ease overcrowding because private prisons are run by corporations rather than the government. So the supporters claim that they save the money and they create jobs, but critics argue that they prioritize profits over rehabilitation, leading to worse conditions like higher abuse rates and fewer rehabilitation programs. Canada has avoided private prisons so far, keeping incarceration under control, but given the current issues of overcrowding and budget cuts, the privatization of prisons can become a future reality. Finally, Canada must rethink its approach to incarceration to prioritize true rehabilitation over punishment. Many experts argue that the restorative justice and community supervision could be more effective than traditional incarceration because countries like Norway, which focus on education and employment training instead of long prison sentences, have seen their recidivism rates drop to nearly half of Canada's. So Canada has experimented with conditional sentencing programs, but these are still not widely used. So investing more in rehabilitation outside of prison could be a key solution to reducing crime and ensuring a successful reintegration for the offender. So, does Canada's prison system truly rehabilitate? In theory, yes, but in practice, it often fails. While the system aims to help inmates reintegrate, problems like overcrowding, lack of mental health support, and indigenous overrepresentation show that many prisoners don't get the support they need. The debate on private prisons raises ethical concerns, and many wonder if alternative justice models like restorative justice could be more effective. So I'll leave you with this question. Should Canada invest more in alternative justice models instead of traditional incarceration? Because if rehabilitation is truly the goal, maybe it's time to rethink the system altogether.